Welcome everyone, my name is Luca and this is my good friend Marco.
Hey, welcome! You are about to form a new random access memory.
And today's memory is about immortality. So, what's your take on it?
Well, today we will divide our talk in three sections. The first one will be what is immortality? Because actually immortality is a sort of umbrella term that we can use for different types of immortality. I mean, it looks a well-defined word, but if you start to dissect it, it comes out very broad as a concept. So we will explore what it is. The second question is, let's imagine that we can achieve immortality one way or the other. What impact it will have in the world? And ultimately, it will make the world better or worse. And the third question is, why do we strive for immortality? So if we look at the natural history, for example, there is a trade-off, because we were immortal. Like the most ancient creatures on Earth are sort of immortal. And then we kind of gave up on immortality, but we tried ever since to achieve it again. So why? Why are we doing this? What's the fuss with immortality, let's say? So what is immortality? What is, in your opinion, immortality?
It can be a different number of things. It's okay. The most basic one is you never age, so you're always there, or you age up to a certain point, and then from there you are basically frozen in time, and that's the second version. Or there's a third version, whereas you age at a certain point, you stop, and even if you are, let's say, damaged, you regenerate your damage and you go back to your initial state. That's, those are the kind of classical ones.
Yeah, that it would be better.
Yeah, there is a problem.
The second one, it's similar to the devil wears Prada. I mean, you keep being alive, but you are ever more compromised. Like your body is ever more dysfunctional and broken. Because you cannot regenerate, you just survive anything, So you
that's what I'm saying. That's the interesting part. Let's say, for example, the never aging part. I think you noticed that I said in the first one I never said anything about age. I said you are ageless. I never said you age to a certain point and then you stop. My point is, if it's the first case, how is the person immortality defined? As in, you are always immortal, because if you don't age, you are always immortal. So you were always there, because if you don't age and you're immortal, you're always there.
So this is the immortality of God.
That's the total immortality.
Cannot change.
You don't have a beginning, you don't have an end. You just are.
Yeah,
That's the first one. And I think, okay, let's get out a little.
I would say that as humans, we cannot achieve this because we are in fact born and evolved.
I know that's
so far.
One problem that I see with the second and the third immortality is, if you are not born immortal, as in if you are not always immortal, you may not be built up to support being eternal. Because if you're always been and you're always gonna be, you have no problem with people growing and dying and you see them and whatever. But if you were mortal up to a point and then you stop being mortal and became immortal, you have the problem of mentality, that things that are not you are fragile and they can die. So it's a mental, I guess, problem that one can have.
Actually, I mean, if we think about the technologies that can achieve immortality, we can divide them in two groups, let's say, two broad groups, which is like total immortality, body and soul, or immortality of the soul alone, let's say. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what we are, we are people, but if I lose this hand, if I lose my right hand in an accident, am I still me? Yes, of course, I'm me without one hand, and it doesn't change much. So if you cut my hand and replace it with a cyborg hand, it will probably not do much difference to me. I don't know if you ever heard the problem of the Theseus ship.
I don't think so. But
it's like it's a ship that goes for a long journey, and during the journey it becomes old. So they just change the sail, and then they change some wooden parts.
So what's
and
the threshold? What's the threshold where you stop being you and became something else? That's what you're trying to say here, right?
Exactly. So if you think about this, as we said before, even though I don't remember in which episode, we should think that every 16 days you change all the water in your body, which is like 70% and plus of your body, and within 8 years every single cell of your body is replaced. So actually you are not like what you think you are. It's not a physical object, but it's the information that you contain. So your memories, your experience.
I see. By the way, your point make me think about another immortality concept or way of doing that. And I'm taking inspiration from the movie Ian Flax, which is a movie from some years ago, where you have humanity and in a city, and then you have a ruling body of people, and then you have the common people, right?
Okay.
And the common people, basically, there is, the common people get birth and whatever, so people can grow, and they're basically categorized in things they need to do, like farmer or whatever. And then you have the ruling body that it's supposed to be different people, but then if you move throughout the movie, you realize that the elite, it's basically the same people over and over again, and they're immortal, but not in the sense that you think of. They are different people, but not. So what I mean is, the original body cloned themselves and grew from kid to like 18 years old adults, their copies, teaching them how to be. And when they died, the new generation created clones and then, moved throughout history this way. So basically they were immortal in the sense that they cloned themselves. So that's, for example, is another way to be immortal.
Yeah,
that's to close off.
But it's like, sorry.
Close off, let's say there is a variation of this one. You can be immortal in the sense of when your body starts to decay, you have already prepared a clone of yourself, and in which you transfer your conscience, so you are immortal and you're still you, but without modifying yourself, which is another way of immortality.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit tricky because you just transfer the information. Because on one side, by cloning yourself, you transfer the genetic information, and by transferring your knowledge somehow, you transfer the rest of information. So it's basically only information, but it's a bit tricky because you go into a new body, let's say, so a meat and bone body.
But if it's yours.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, let's imagine this thing. Let's imagine that it becomes legal to give birth to your own parents. Let's say it becomes legal. You can, if you have a wife, let's say, your wife tells, okay, let's have a daughter, but I want this daughter to have the genetic code of my mother, which I assume is technically feasible because we can copy the DNA, so we can just inject this DNA into a staminal
an embryo. It should potentially be possible.
I mean, it seems feasible. I mean, if we are able to clone, why don't we clone our relatives? I mean, we have the technology to do it, but I guess it's illegal everywhere.
There is also that little detail about morality, but yeah.
But let's suppose that it's legal, and
immoral.
I don't know. Actually, I really don't know. I mean, if your wife asks you, I want that our first daughter is my mother, just let's put it.
The problem with this one is not, okay, think about this in the long term. It's not a problem short term, but if you recycle genetic material that it's already been there, you are kinda weakening the genetic pool of humankind. If you keep repeating things that already have been, you are kind of stumping evolution.
Yeah, no, I think that it could be done, but of course you need to have some rules. Like you cannot have the next generation that it's more than 50% recycled previous generations. That would be.
And also a little aside that people may want to look at in our DNA. We have parts of the DNA that are called junk DNA, which is not kind of used, which can be used to store, things and whatever was not.
In my knowledge, we still don't know if it's useless or if it's only not understood so far.
Fair
But I
enough.
want to tell you one thing. It was very common in the beginning of the Neolithic, so in the very ancient time, that you have god kings. So it's like in many different culture, like the Egyptian culture or the culture of the people who built Stonehenge, for example, you find that in large tombs, so in large funerary monuments, there are people who are very, very, very closely related to each other. So they are product of incest.
Yeah,
So it means that
creates a lot of issues biology-wise with disease that can be propagated or other defects in the DNA genome that it's potentially a problem if you are too closely related. But
no, but I think that they probably were aware of this, but they just tried many times, because they were so picky. They were so picky in preserving their own DNA. Like, yeah, they wanted somehow to be immortal. Like it seems like
it was the first try at. By the way, if I got another couple of immortality concept ideas. Okay, let's assume that we don't have a soul, or whatever. Let's not go there. And let's assume that you understood that human body and mind is basically moved by electrical impulses. And you are an unethical person and just
electrochemical, let's say.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And you go to the morgue and you take pieces of bodies, put them together, take a mind, and use electricity to bring it up. If you don't have a
Frankenstein.
soul, yeah, you are creating an immortal being, because basically it never was, now it is, and it's never. It's already dead, so it can't be dead, right? So that's one other example. And the last one that I want you to think about is different, but something that I kind of like. What if we are immortal, but not as a human entity, but as written words that are propagated through history? For example, ancient Greeks are immortal because we still talk and remember them, even though centuries has passed.
So, Luca, now I answer you with this question. Why you think I'm recording this worth of data on YouTube?
So, that's what I'm saying.
Because I want to be immortal, and this is the point. Like, in the past, information was expensive, like if you want to write a few bytes on a book, it was extremely expensive to keep, you have to copy the book from time to time, it was an expensive endeavor. And over time it became cheaper and cheaper, and this means that we can leave much more information now. So it could be, if in the future the computers will be powerful enough to basically emulate a human brain, it will be possible, I assume, to create, let's say, a blueprint of a human that you can train using existing information. So if we record a lot of video, a blueprint of a human, so an artificial neural network that simulates a human, could infer a lot of aspects of our personality, so we could be recreated in a quite accurate way. I mean, you cannot recreate, maybe you can recreate Plato in a quite accurate way because he wrote a lot. So if you have a blueprint of a human, you can train this blueprint to be something kind of similar to Plato. Of course, like the very intelligent human beings are harder to recreate than the average one. So they need a more sophisticated neural network. So it's hard to recreate Plato or Einstein.
Just
with the same.
Start with easier subjects such as politicians. I think it's going to be like 1 meg of blueprints or something. It's easy.
Yeah, no, I think that they can already do it, like with the Siri, you're more or less at the same intelligence level.
I have another interesting thing. I was watching a movie on what was that, Amazon? No, it was Netflix today. And the concept was there were like immortal beings that were passing through ages. And at some point, the oldest of those, which was she was born in the ancient Greek, like 6,000 years ago or so. And what they're saying was, we are immortal.
Sorry, what's the title of the movie? I lost it.
It was The Old Guard. It came out
The Old Guard. Okay,
it came out today, right? And the idea at the end was, we are immortal. We don't age, and if we are armed, we can regenerate ourselves. But there was a but. after a certain time, and for the girl, the protagonist, the girl was 6,000 years of time, you lost that immortality. As in, you can't regenerate anymore. So it was immortality, but with an expiration date. So
yeah, a very long lifespan.
You can recover your injuries, but you have a finite number, even though it's huge, a finite number of times where you can regenerate yourself. So it's immortality, but with mortality close at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very long lifespan, which is sort of one of the ways to achieve immortality. But before to conclude on what is immortality, I want to conclude with a thought experiment. Because imagine that your brain is uploaded onto a computer, you know? Or the example that I did before, you have an artificial neural network that study you and try to reproduce you. I mean, you survive, but maybe it's not you. I mean, imagine that your brain is scanned and then they start to play this new brain when you are still alive. So it's like you can talk with it and you perceive it as something else.
Is it gonna diverge from where you are? Because at the end of the day, we are what our experiences teach us. So you're saying that if you have a snapshot in time of yourself and yourself living at the same time, but you don't have the same experience, you're saying
you diverge.
You and your copy are gonna be different people at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point. I mean, they have to start it only when you're dead, or they have to kill you immediately after the brain scan.
Just use the latest snapshot before you're dead, yeah?
Yeah, because otherwise you will perceive that it's no longer you, you know? Once the two of you are played together, it's no longer you. But if they kill you immediately, it's like the teletransport machine.
Yeah,
you know?
You have the same baseline of memories, but different experiences. So you are potentially different people at the end of. Yeah, I can see your point.
Yeah, because it's like the teletransport machine. You know, your body is completely destroyed, and then it's completely recreated in another place. You know, so the atoms are different. It's something else. But simply, it's something else that has exactly your same experience. So it's very hard to understand if it's you or not. That's the point. I mean, maybe the remote, the teletransport machine, it's at the end of the day a killing machine. So let's assume that we can achieve immortality, be it whole body immortality. So through medicine, we improve the lifespan so much that you can become immortal or dramatically more long living, let's say, or you can upload yourself on a computer, etc. What impact will this have on the world? Like, what impact will it have on the economy, on the culture, on the society in general? Do you think that the world will become a better place or a worse place at the end of the day?
Potentially a worse one, for one reason only. If you have a constant number of human beings on this planet, and it's been proven by history that we can have more than X amount of people on this earth before we have problems.
I strongly disagree, but
let me. You can have
finish.
Yeah.
So
one good thing about death is, that kinda balance out people that are here and people that should not be here. I mean, there is never too many people because people die at some point. If people don't die, then you need to have a way to limit the number of people. So there cannot be new people, because that would mean that you are creating another entity that is going to be there forever. So you need to have some way to limit the function of humankind.
The right to reproduce, let's say.
Right. So in this way is a bad thing. And also, I think, but that's just me, that having different people that appear, do something, and disappear, make things progress. Because if you are always there and you are basically yourself with your set of ideas, beliefs, and concepts and whatever, and you don't disappear, there is no reason whatsoever to change. Think about it. progress is there when people think differently. But if people are the same and they don't change the way they think,
you
progress
basically
is
have
kind of like
only old people, let's say.
not old, but setting their ideas, and people with set ideas don't change them. And if you don't change your ideas, you don't challenge your ideas, you don't grow. Not you as a person, but you as a society.
In general, yeah, and I understand. No, the first point, I strongly disagree, because we are talking about science fiction here. I mean, we obviously have limits on the population that we can sustain right now, let's say. But of course, if we imagine a technological level where we can produce the dramatic life extension improvement that we are talking about, we are probably also able to set up colonies in the solar system, like, rotating habitats to like the one in Interstellar that can support a population.
What stops rich people to have an advantage in how long they're going to live as opposed to poor people, and with all the commas and whatever they are. So in any society that we've seen, I don't think that's going to change. A group of people believes and is able to have more of something than another group of people. So what's stopping rich people to be more immortal or more long-lived than other people?
Well, this is actually what's already happening, because it's if you look at the lifespan of different countries on Earth, it's pretty clear that the GDP per capita is strongly correlated with the life expectancy. So it's like in the countries where people are more rich, the people live longer. And even though I didn't saw the chart, I assume that also within a country, if you are richer, you perhaps live longer. So this is already happening. It's clear
that's natural evolution. That's kind of a byproduct. What I'm saying is, it's a choice that people who have more resources are able to access technologies that allows them to be longer lived than people who have access to less resources. So they are less. There is a divide at some point in some way. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but 2,000 and plus years of history tell me that if there is something that can be used by a little number of people and not shared, it's going to happen. So that's why I know I'm a pessimist in this case. But
no, I think that I mean, both the things are true. I mean, it is true that who is at the top try to prevent, let's say, try to cut the stair from those who are at the bottom. But it's also true that there is a trickle-down effect. I mean, if you think about me and you, which are, I mean, let's not talk about wealth, but which is actually quite different between me and you, actually. But any of us, any of me and you, leads a life that in the Middle Age kings and emperors couldn't dream. Like we don't care. Like we will not starve of hunger until there is a total collapse of society, And for the kings, it was the same, They didn't worry about their next meal. They didn't worry about where they will buy clothes and to have enough wood to heat their castle, let's say. But of course, they were afraid of a collapse of the society, because that was the thing that would put their life in danger. And nowadays, we are exactly like that. So, and there are a couple of billion people on Earth that basically live like emperors of before. So there has been a trickle-down effect, and I think it will continue. I mean, I think if we achieve dramatic life extension technologies, of course, at first they will be really an elite of people can afford these, but eventually they will slowly start to spread, and eventually we will be in a time where a large fraction of the population will be able to afford these. So at the end of the day, I think it will be good. And also the limit on the population, if you assume that you can upload your consciousness into the cloud, let's say, then you can probably run with very little resources, a very large number of people. Just think about this. Our brain on average, consume between 15 and 20 watt of power. So it's less than a light bulb. If we were able, I mean, now we need a lot of resources because we need to eat the plants and animals. But if we were able to just put our brain into a environment, you know, like into a salty solution and keep it alive, then it would be very easy. And I think we could easily support hundreds of billions of people on the planet. So we just talked about if it's good or bad to be immortal, but what is the reason why we want to become immortal? I mean, I personally would like to have these kind of technologies because I would like to be immortal, for the reason that I would like to have infinite time to learn and to understand new concept, like, I don't know, to work on myself and to gain knowledge, and also to see the future, you know, to see the world and the universe changing. It's like, it's kind of sad that my curiosity will disappear at some point. So I would love to keep feeding my curiosity for the whole of my life, let's say. And many people share this feeling that I have, I'm sure. I mean, many people want to be immortal. And also it's a thing of nature, you know? Like, think about the mice or the rats, like the simplest, or the rabbits. The simplest animal, they tend to have a short lifespan. So they recycle them really quickly. They recycle themselves really quickly. Why, like, the bigger animals, the more complex, like the elephant or the humans, they tend to be slower, you know, to have a slower life cycle and to live for longer. So it's like, it seems that nature somehow it's going toward immortality. And within human history as well, we always prolonged our lifespan. So there is a process, an ongoing process that is increasing the lifespan, you know. And this it's interesting for me, because if you think about tardigrades, like very simple animal like tardigrades or unicellular beings, they are immortal. I mean, they will die because they will be eaten by something else or because they will have an accident, but they don't age. So it's like, aging on one side allow us to evolve faster, to recycle ourselves and to grow in complexity. But then when we were sufficiently complex, we started to slow down again, and we might eventually go back to the original, you know, like the simplest life form are immortal. So what's your opinion about this? Like, why we want to be immortal? What is the pros and cons of immortality, if you want, let's say?
I think we like to believe that we were made to experience a lot more, so we don't want experiences to end on one side of the argument. But on the other side of the argument, I firmly believe that we are, as a species, we are not made to be immortal or totally immortal. Maybe longer lived, maybe, but longer lived than now, yes, but not immortal because of two. I already said that if you live forever, or if you live a very, very long life, you kind of stop trying to do things at some point, because you know that you're gonna be there to see them. So why do things? Just observe. And I think having a lifespan that is very long means that you get lazy. You get lazy because, you know, you procrastinate. You have to do something, right? But you know that you can do it in 20, 40, 50 years because nothing's gonna change. So, you know, you wait. And also, a lot of progress was made because someone wanted to leave a mark of his presence in history, wanted to better, you know, the new generation be in a better place than what was before. So if you have a long present, where is your drive to make the future better if the future for you is going to be a present? That's what I'm saying. And also, I think I already said that, but I'm going to repeat it. To have a meaning, someone needs to have an opposite. You know, you have light because of darkness, but if there is no darkness, light has no meaning. To have happiness, you need to have unhappiness, and you can have absolutes. Life is relative to something. You can't have opposites that are absolute, because that way you lose part of your reality. And I think that's a bad thing. I'm not saying immortality is a bad thing. I'm saying longer living beings are fine. Not dying things is bad.
Yeah, I mean, so you would be completely fine with people live for an average of 1,200 years, let's say. But
I would settle with 400. It's a 1,000 years is a long period of time. Think about it.
Well, Luca, I'm honestly amazed how you can even discriminate between 400 and 1,000. I mean, in my opinion, I really have no reference. Like, I
think about, to be fair, I think about the year 1,000, actually 999 and the new millennium, and think what was happening there, and think about what happened in 1999 and 2000.
In 2099,
think about the new century, the first century, the end of the century, 999, and think about 1999. Think about how much time passed between, how much evolution it was between those two, endpoints, and think about maybe half of that period of time, and think about how much innovation there was in that period in time. 1,000 years is too much. Half of that, 500, if you like, it's enough that you see progress. It's enough that you see anything that you can think of. It's enough for you to experience a lot of things. It's like what, 3-4 generations, 5 generations?
Yeah, that would be good.
So I guess it's more or less rounding up enough to be enough for you to live your life, but not enough for you to get bored and stop doing stuff. That's for me, obviously.
You know what? I have to be really honest and say something a bit selfish. If there are such life extension techniques, I really wish I'm among those who can afford it. Because if it happens that I have to die with the conscience that people that were alive together with me will have a dramatically longer lifespan, I will be excruciatingly envious. So it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
We wish you a happy week.
And to see you next week with a new random access memory. Stay frosty and safe.